of grown up around real estate. My parents are investors here in Houston. They're also so if any of you guys know Jet Lending out there, Ed is my dad. So yeah, I'm not sure if any of y'all are familiar, but it's kind of how I got started. They've been Quest clients since 2004, and I've been with Quest for a little over 4 years now. Always knew I wanted to do something in real estate, never really anticipated. I educate people about retirement accounts, but it's just kind of where I've fallen and have found a niche. And so now I do a lot of presentations. I do a lot of our business development, a lot of our marketing, videos, things like that. You'll see my face on a lot of those. But yeah, definitely happy to be here tonight. Did we have anything else that we were doing before I go into my thing, or did we want to go ahead and?
Everybody was just kind of talking about deals they're doing, what's going on in life in general.
Nice. Yeah.
And we were just actually, Mike, what's going on with you, Mike, before she takes over?
All right, can you hear me there?
There you are.
Well, I just got laid off. That's kind of a big deal, right? Now I get to do real estate full time.
So what else are you doing? What do you want to do? What are you trying to do?
Well, I need to find some deals. I need to find some projects. That's really the main goal. But I've been doing some construction work just to try to get a little bit more probably confident in some of the stuff that I haven't really paid much attention to up to this point. Came out and did some flooring for you, so that was actually pretty cool. But no, I mean, without losing sight of the big picture here, I'm trying to put full time into looking for deals now.
All right. Are you gonna do? Are you doing any direct marketing? Are you getting a list of pre-foreclosures or tax properties or?
Yeah, I've got a list of sort of a mix of things right now. I'm going to try something a little different here. I've done a lot of direct mail, but I'm going to try doing some driving and sort of door-to-door, face-to-face contact, which right now is probably something that very few people are doing because of the pandemic. A lot of people are sort of, I think, scared to do that. But I want to kind of see how that's going to go. I think that may be a place that not a lot of people are trying to hit. You know, is direct mail still working? I'm sure it is if you're sending enough of it, but I want to try something different now and see if maybe I can get some better results out of that.
Okay, cool. Well, all right. Well, it is almost 7, so let's go ahead and start.
All right, perfect. Give me just 1 second. Let me get my screen shared. And I have a pretty short slide presentation prepared for you guys. It's literally like maybe 10 slides with a case study. So Rick, I think you told me what, 10, 15 minutes around there, and then maybe some Q&A at the end or whatever. Cool. Let's see. Oh,
yeah, if you want to go longer, that's fine.
Cool. I could literally talk about IRAs all day. So give me 1 second. Let me get my screen shared. All right. Perfect. Can y'all see that? Got a bit of an echo. Okay, cool. So again, pretty short presentation planned for tonight. You know, I already kind of told you guys a little bit about who I am. I've been with Quest for about 4 years. I'm one of our IRA specialists. So basically my role is to go around and educate investors pretty much all over the country about what is a self-directed IRA, what types of investments can I do, and really how can you just really get the most out of your retirement account. The really cool thing about self-directed IRAs is it's really customizable to whatever your personal situation might be. So I know, not sure your name, but someone, you know, and we're mentioning you just got laid off, which, you know, is always unfortunate. But if you are in that situation and you do have like a 401k or an IRA that's maybe not doing much, it's always a great time to learn about some of the different investment options you might have for your retirement funds. And one thing that sets Quest apart from some of the other self-directed IRA companies out there is we actually really do enjoy building relationships with our clients. So, we'll hold your hand every step of the way from getting started, getting the account open, and kind of pointing you in the right direction. We can't give you tax, legal, or investment advice, but our IRA specialists, most of them have been with Quest for at least a couple of years now. And a lot of us are also investors ourselves. So I've done some deals in my IRA. My boyfriend is a real estate investor. We live together. And like I said, my family's been in real estate for pretty much my entire life. And I was an only child, so I had no choice but to grow up surrounded by everything real estate for pretty much my entire life. So a little bit about who is Quest Trust Company. We are the largest self-directed IRA custodian in the state of Texas. We are based out of Houston. That's where most of our staff is based out of, but we do have remote offices in both Austin and Dallas as well. So I actually worked up in our Dallas office for about 2.5 years and then moved back to Houston about a year ago. But we've got a lot of employees, overall about 140 of us, but a lot of us do hold the designation of CISP, which is a Certified IRA Services Professional. And basically, in order to achieve that designation, you have to have worked at an IRA company for at least 2 years and then take a week-long class and pass an exam by the American Banking Association. So it's definitely not an easy achievement, but about a third of our staff has been with the company for several years. And, we've really kind of grown from a homegrown company, kind of into who we are today. And, as I mentioned, quick disclaimer, we do not give tax investment advice. We are the experts when it comes to educating about self-directed IRAs, but that's the reason why you guys are in groups like this. You want to make sure you have the other tools in your tool belt and that you are doing all of your due diligence before your deals. Even if you're using an IRA, that due diligence process, don't treat it any differently. But basically, what is a self-directed IRA? So the IRAs that we hold at Quest, there is really no legal distinction between our IRAs and your IRA that you might have at any other custodian. So Fidelity, Charles Schwab, Quest, we all hold the same types of IRA accounts. The only difference is the types of assets that your custodian allows you to invest in. So where most traditional custodians, they only allow you to invest into publicly traded assets, such as stocks, mutual funds, other sorts of publicly traded securities. And there's nothing wrong with that, but you do actually have this ability to also hold privately held assets in your IRA, such as real estate investments, maybe some promissory notes. And you've actually had the ability to hold these assets in an IRA since the 70s. But to be honest, there's just not a lot of education out there. There's not a lot of companies that specialize in holding privately held assets. So there are several self-directed IRA custodians out there, but overall, only about 2% of retirement money in America is self-directed. And it's really just because there's not a lot of great education out there. So a lot of people really think that they only know enough to be dangerous. But that's, again, kind of where we come in. Our IRA specialists are trained to help to walk you through the process. So you do feel confident in the things that you are doing with your IRA account. There's a lot of investments to having a self-directed IRA. That first one, again, is diversification. No matter how well diversified your retirement portfolio might be, if you're not holding some sort of private or tangible asset in your IRA, you're really not as diversified as you could be. And to be honest, a lot of clients at Quest, they might only transfer part of their IRA funds over. So you're still not keeping all of your eggs in one basket. But remember, at Quest, we only hold privately held assets. So most of our clients might move over what they intend on self-directing, kind of play with it, invest it, let it grow. And then what's great is if you want to do another deal, all you have to do is just transfer more funds over. You can move cash between your IRA accounts at any given time, just depending on where you want your money invested. So again, having the right education about all of these kind of alternative assets that we allow you to hold at Quest is a really great way to actually truly diversify your retirement portfolio. IRAs also get really awesome tax savings. So where you as an individual will always, unfortunately, be a taxpayer, your IRA actually grows from year to year without being taxed. So any growth within your IRA is reported on a completely different tax form than your own personal income. So most IRAs and retirement accounts grow tax deferred, meaning you don't pay any taxes until you take out your distributions later at retirement. But there are also some other types of accounts like the Roth IRA and the health savings account that grow completely tax-free. Kind of talk about those a little bit more on the next slide. But just know that, you as an individual, you're probably paying back anywhere from like 20 to 37% of your income back to Uncle Sam each year. Your IRA does not lose that large chunk of income, paying it back in taxes each year. So if you think of maybe doing a real estate deal or two, how much money you can make from that, and then have it not be taxed, and then just keep doing that over the next 5, 10, 20 years, there's a really, really great opportunity for building wealth here that, most people they have no idea that you can hold these types of assets in an IRA. But what's also cool is as real estate investors, we all kind of have our little specialty. We might have our niche. A lot of people like private lending. A lot of people like notes. A lot of people like multifamily, really kind of up to you. Whatever your skill set is, you can apply that to the investments in your IRA because it's truly 100% self-directed. You go out, you find your investments, you choose how they're structured. The only difference is they're held in your IRA and not your own name or your own business. We'll get to that a little bit more on another slide, but just kind of know there's a lot of benefits to having a self-directed IRA, and really setting up a consultation with an IRA specialist is a really great way for us to tailor the conversation to your personal situation. As you can see here on the screen, there are 7 different types of accounts at Quest that can be self-directed. Most people will have the personal plans, the traditional IRA or the Roth IRA. Most times whenever you roll over a 401k, those funds will roll over into a traditional IRA without any tax implications. So remember, all of these accounts on the screen here can be self-directed. Self-directed isn't actually a type of IRA. It's really just a marketing term. So all of these IRAs that we hold at Quest technically are self-directed IRAs. So we've got the personal plans. That traditional IRA will grow tax deferred. So you will have to pay taxes on those distributions later. But what I really like to educate people about is the Roth IRA. The Roth IRA, if you are a high income earner, I believe if you're filing jointly and your income is over around 200,000, you're not eligible to make a direct contribution to a Roth IRA. But what you can do, and what we actually see a lot of people do, is something called a Roth conversion, where basically you can actually move funds from a tax deferred traditional IRA. You can move those into a Roth IRA. Now, the benefit of that is the Roth IRA grows completely tax-free for the rest of your life, and you get to pass on that money from the Roth IRA completely tax-free to your heirs as well. So I would recommend, if can't give investment advice, but I would recommend if you see yourself substantially growing an IRA by the time you hit retirement, I would definitely recommend at least do some of your investments in a Roth IRA. And if your funds are currently in a 401k or a traditional IRA, look into doing that Roth conversion. Basically, whenever you do a Roth conversion, you will pay taxes on whatever amount you move into the Roth IRA. So that is a taxable event, but it's basically just added to your taxable income for the year. And then you pay ordinary income taxes on it. And then everything else from there grows completely tax-free for the rest of your life. So always kind of like to touch on that Roth conversion there. It's ultimately something that's up to you to decide. Probably recommend reviewing that with a tax advisor, but it could be a really great way to pay taxes on a smaller amount upfront now, and then again, just have the rest of it grow to completely tax-free. Moving on to these employer plans here in the middle, these plans are really great because they allow you to dump a lot more money into an IRA from your own personal funds. So if you if you're self-employed and maybe your 401k isn't eligible to roll over yet, or if maybe you're just looking to put more money into an IRA, these accounts in the middle allow for contributions potentially up to $57,000 in 1 year. For example, the SEP IRA is probably the most common one that we see. With the SEP IRA, you can contribute 25% of your earned income up to $57,000. So it's a great way to dump a lot of money into an IRA within 1 year. Or if you're looking for a nice tax write-off, those SEP IRA contributions are also tax deductible. So it's a great way to maybe minimize your tax liability for the year as well. Simple IRAs, to be honest, I have only ever set up one simple IRA in my 4 years at Quest. Gonna just skip that one. But also the solo 401k. The solo 401k is actually its own hour-long class completely by itself. You know, if you've been on Bigger Pockets at all, you've probably seen a lot of people talk about the solo 401k. It's a really great account. It does come with just a little bit extra responsibility compared to some of the other plans. But the solo 401k is great because it allows for those larger contribution limits. You actually get the checkbook control with this account. And there's, don't want to get too far into this, but there's an exemption on UBIT. So if you guys have heard of UBIT, unrelated business income tax, one of my personal favorite topics, the solo 401k gets an exemption to this. If you want to know more about that, we can cover that in the Q&A at the end, but I'm not trying to go into a UBIT rabbit hole right now. So those are the employer plans. And the reason why we spend so much time on this slide is because this really is the foundations. You know, again, call an IRA specialist. We can answer all of your questions about these accounts, but starting the foundation, knowing what types of accounts you can self-direct between you and your immediate family, then learn how you can invest those accounts. So you can grow multiple accounts, multiple buckets of money, as we like to call it, all at the same time, and they all kind of fit different needs. I always kind of like to mention that because you notice we do spend a lot of time on this slide. But the last plans here on the screen are these specialty plans. They are very underutilized, but they are extremely valuable because they can be self-directed just like all of our other IRAs, but they can be accessed today completely tax-free to either pay for your qualified health expenses, which is very broad, or your qualified educational expenses, maybe for your children, nieces, nephews, you know, pretty much anyone you want to self-direct that Coverdell Education Savings Account for. But the health savings account, going to spend a minute on this one because this account is really cool. A lot of people might have an HSA through their employer and they don't realize that these funds can be self-directed. So the HSA can be self-directed, just all of our other plans. And what's even better about the health savings account is if you have an HSA in place today, say it's small, maybe it's still growing, and so you're paying for your medical expenses out of pocket. As long as the HSA is in place at the time that a health expense occurs, if you end up paying for that out of pocket, you can come back at any point in the future and reimburse yourself completely tax-free from your health savings account. So basically what that means for you is, say if you have $10,000 of medical expenses that you end up paying for out of pocket, you could come back 5 years from now after maybe you've invested and you've grown your HSA a little bit, and you can reimburse yourself, take out that $10,000 completely tax-free and not have any penalties, because technically you are reimbursing yourself for that qualified health expense. So if you kind of figure out how to work that a little bit, it gives you a lot of flexibility to self-direct this account, grow it completely tax-free, but you're actually able to access that money before you're 59 and a half. If y'all have more questions about that, we'll definitely talk about it at the end, but we'll kind of leave it at that at the types of accounts for now. This screen right here, these are just a few of the many investment options that you have with a self-directed IRA. Notice stocks, publicly traded securities are not listed anywhere here on the screen, but basically at Quest, we break our investments down into 3 different categories, and we actually have our transactions department as a whole that is broken into these 3 different categories. So we have specialists in each department that actually specialize in funding each different type of investment that we hold at Quest. So real estate would be like the direct ownership of rental properties, single families, raw land. You could even purchase foreclosure properties with your IRA. We could issue you cashier's checks for you to do that. But real estate, it can be a little onerous because all of the expenses have to be paid from the IRA. You cannot pay for them yourself. Everything really needs to be kept at arm's length between yourself and your IRA. So we do see a lot of people hold real estate. It could be really great because the appreciation is completely tax deferred or tax free. So if you hold a property for a long time and it say triples in value, there could potentially be no capital gains taxes on that property whenever you sell it. Next up, we have private entities here in the middle. This is a really popular investment option because a lot of people like to use their self-directed IRAs to be completely passive. So the investments more so on the private entities and promissory notes side are much more passive. You know, it's a lot easier sometimes to keep at arm's length. Definitely still important to be aware of the rules when you are investing with your self-directed IRA because, you know, the rules are the same no matter what type of investment you're holding. But we do see a lot of people that like to use their IRAs to be passive and either invest passively into apartment complex syndications, commercial deals, trust, joint ventures, but also promissory notes. So promissory notes is actually the largest class of assets that we hold at Quest. I do actually have a short case study of a note that I did with my IRA, but we do see a lot of people that like to use their IRAs to be private lenders. Now, of course, when you're using your IRA to be a private lender, you can either loan your funds out secured or unsecured. Quest cannot tell you how to structure your investment, but this is where the due diligence and the knowledge of, you know, how to properly structure a deal really comes into play, because you want to make sure that your IRA and your investments are protected. So, you know, obviously a secured loan is going to be a little more secure than an unsecured loan that has no collateral attached to it, but we do fund both types of deals. We also see a lot of people that maybe will purchase existing notes with their IRA, partials, wraps, subject tos. You can do all of these investments with your IRA. The only kind of restrictions that you do want to be aware of is that you cannot personally benefit right now from your IRA investments. Your IRA was made to benefit you in retirement. We get really awesome tax advantages to help us save for retirement. So the IRS just really doesn't want you personally benefiting right now from your IRA investments. But if you want to know more about those restrictions, we have several other videos, or you can just call us and we can kind of walk you through that. But I don't want to get too bogged down in that tonight. But these are just some of the many different investment options you have with your IRA. Now, once you decide that, okay, this sounds awesome, I'm ready to start self-directing some of my funds, these are the kind of 5 easy steps, as we like to put it, to actually getting started with your account up to funding a deal. So, you know, I might sound like a bit of a broken record with this, but the IRA specialist, guys, we have a lot of training that goes on internally for our team of IRA specialists. We are here to make the process easy on you. We're here to help to educate you throughout the process. We also help with opening up your account, kind of the main first point of contact for you to help get your account open and help you get your account funded as well. So to fund your IRA, to kind of recap on that, you could either transfer funds from a current IRA that you have, or you can roll over funds from maybe a 401k or employer plan. Now, typically you do have to no longer work at that company in order to be eligible to roll those funds over. But once you no longer work there, you're definitely eligible to roll that over into an IRA. Or if you're just starting new, you could definitely open up an account and make contributions. I always like to tell people there's definitely no number too small to get started. Sorry, my office door is open right now. There is no number too small to get started. I actually started with my IRA a couple of years ago when I started working at Quest, and it had 2 years worth of contribution limits, total of $11,000. And just from partnering it on some deals, I actually partnered it with my mom's IRA, and my IRA owned a very small percentage of a few fix and flips that we did with those IRAs. And it grew from $11,000 to $27,000 in about 2.5 years, literally just from owning 8 to 10% of 3 different investments, 3 different fix and flips that we did. So I was able to kind of like leverage the resources around me, which is something I would encourage all of you to do as well. And I was able to grow that account. And once you do an investment, it grows a little bit. Do another investment, it grows a little bit more. It just becomes easier and easier to find places to deploy your funds. And then, you know, as it grows, you're not paying any taxes on that. It's not reported on your own income. So it's a really great way to shelter those investments as well. But kind of went off on a little bit of a tangent there. Let's go back to the steps to purchase an asset. We'll help you get your account open. We'll help you get it funded. Once it's time to find your investment, that is totally up to you. You know, Quest cannot provide investments, but you know, we will help you with throughout the process, especially once you find that investment. If it's your first deal or two, give us a call. We'll connect you with our transactions team at that point, and they'll kind of be your main point of contact to get that deal funded. The overall time frame of this, you know, at Quest, we are very fast. We're actually one of the fastest in the industry. Our processes are always going to be 24 to 48 hours. But the part of the time frame that we do not have control over is how quickly or how slowly we can get your funds moved over from your current custodian. Thank you. So when you're moving funds from one IRA custodian to another, that could take anywhere from 3 to 5 days to 3 to 5 weeks, just depending on where the funds are coming from. We do actually have a list of every custodian that we have moved in funds from, and a lot of them we do have timeframes for. But just be aware, if you are actively looking for an investment to do with an IRA account, I would definitely encourage you, go ahead and get the process started of getting your funds moved over, because you know, sometimes we don't have control over that time frame. Sometimes when a good deal comes across your plate, it needs to be funded, you know, faster than 2 to 4 weeks. So, you know, go ahead and get that process started. At least educate yourself about how that works and about the timeframes that you would be looking at once you are ready to get the ball rolling. All right, so I do have a quick case study. I kind of already told you guys about the first couple of deals that I did with my IRA. And, you know, my first couple of years at Quest started out, you know, pretty easy, moved up to Dallas, ended up running the Dallas office. Then when I moved back to Houston, I started doing a lot more public speaking. So where my first deals that I did with my IRA, they were a little bit more hands-on because we were actually holding that real estate in our IRAs. Actually partnered my IRA with my mom's IRA, which you are allowed to do that. You know, there's certain things you cannot do, but you can partner IRA together and divide up the percentages of ownership all day long. And it's a really great strategy that we see a lot of people utilize because, you know, most families will have more than one type of account. You know, a lot of times you might have a 401k, your husband might has a 401k, you guys might and you should have Roth IRAs, maybe you have a health savings account. So we do see a lot of people actually partner multiple accounts together on investments. And, you know, if you're doing something like me and Derek did here for this deal, we just partnered our funds together to be private lenders. You know, I know Derek very well. He's actually one of my coworkers. Our offices are right next to each other. So, you know, if worst case scenario happened and we did have to foreclose on this property, I know and trust the person that I've partnered my IRA with. So, you know, we do see a lot of people, maybe husband and wife, partner their accounts together. But, you know, just something you kind of want to be aware of. And these percentages of ownership, they could be anything. It could have been 90%, 10%, 50%. That's totally up to you to decide how that deal is structured. Just be aware that these percentages do have to stay consistent throughout the life of the investment. So everything kind of comes in and out pro rata based on these percentages of ownership. But kind of getting back to what I was mentioning about, you know, moving back to Houston, doing more public speaking, I did not have time to do fix and flips anymore. So I decided at this point I wanted to use my IRA to be a private lender just because it was a lot more passive. So I had my money just sitting around for a couple of months, not really doing much. So, you know, I walked over to Derek's office. I was like, hey, I want to loan my money out. You know, do we have any connections right now? And within about a day, we had an investor that was in our circle that we decided to loan $50,000 to that he needed for a fix and flip. So we loaned our money out at 10% interest with 2 points paid up front and 1 point went to each IRA. our IRAs were partnered 50-50. So my IRA put in 25,000 and Derek's IRA put in the same amount as well. So our monthly interest payments were nice, easy, $208 a month, just from a small loan, 6 months. To be honest, my IRA did make a little bit more money doing those fix and flips, but it was a lot more hands-on. And then once I finished those, I kind of just let my money sit idle for 6 months. So it just sit there not doing anything. So I decided, I would much rather get a safe and secure $200 a month in interest to my IRA, keep that money working. And, again, as your account continues to grow, it just becomes easier and easier to get those larger returns because you kind of have more to work with and you can kind of figure out, what types of investments really suit you and your IRA. So this is actually the full titling of how an IRA is titled. It's really important to remember that when you're doing deals with your IRA, you get to quarterback the deal. You get to make all of the investment and financial decisions for your IRA account, but it's not actually you doing the investment. It's your IRA. So the way that your IRA will always be titled is Quest Trust Company for the benefit of your name and then your IRA account number. As you can see here, if you're partnering IRAs, it is the exact same, except you just add this little part here to the end, which is the as to an undivided interest of blank percent. So in this case, it was 50%. My first couple of deals, it was like 92% and 10% or 8%. So, you have the freedom to choose how those deals are structured. But one thing I forgot to mention here when I was going through the different types of investments is there's kind of two different sides to promissory notes and IRAs. I was mentioning a lot of people like to use their IRAs to be passive private lenders. That also means for you guys as real estate investors going out there and doing deals, you're probably going to need funding for those deals, right? So if you kind of have a good base knowledge of how someone can actually use an IRA to be a private money lender, if you kind of start that conversation when you're going out there and you're networking with people, if you're looking for funding, just kind of know that that person, if they wanted to, could use their IRA to be a private lender on your deal. Know how to introduce that conversation, know how to build the rapport, and then just know when to bring in Quest on the conversation. You can be like, oh, I have a deal coming up. I need some funding. Did you know that you could use your IRA to be a private lender? Oh, think I'm crazy? No, sometimes how the conversation goes. But they're either going to look at you like you're crazy, or they're going to think, okay, that actually sounds kind of cool, but I need to know more about it. At that point, send them over to Quest. We can help to, fill in the logistics, the education, and Quest is always neutral. We're not here to endorse or pitch anyone's investment. We're here to educate about how self-directed IRAs function, basically. So, it's a really great way to not only use your IRA to invest for your retirement, but you can also access other people's IRAs as private financing sources for your own deals and kind of, work both sides of that. And if you kind of know how to work it, you can kind of maybe create a little financial friends network among you and your people around you, because you can use your IRA to be a private lender on someone else's deal. They can use their IRA to be a private lender on, someone else's deal, and kind of just create a bit of a circle where you have access to revolving doors of private money. And, especially with COVID and everything going on in the world, there's a lot of people that do not have faith in the stock market. There's a lot of Americans that do not feel that they are as educated as they should be about their investments in their IRAs. And it's conversations that aren't happening enough. So, if you go out there and share this information with other people, your family, other people in your network, there are a lot of great ways to not only build wealth for yourself, but also to access other people's IRAs as private money and help them grow their retirement account as well. So, some quick processes of how this investment actually works. What does Quest need? To fund an investment, we're always going to need just two pieces of information. The investment documents, in this case, it was a promissory note. As the client, you do have to sign off on that. We call that your read and approved signature. So we need the investment documents, and we need you to fill out a form. It's called the direction of investment. It's about 3 pages long, and it's basically just supporting information that will reflect what is in those investment documents. So for example, if you're buying a property with your IRA, we would just need the contract showing your IRA as the buyer for that property. And then in that case, you would fill out the direction of investment for real estate. And we do also have all of these instructions online as well. And once you do have an IRA open with us, we do have a really nice online client portal where you can see your accounts, transactions, statements, pretty much at any time online. And we actually have some cool features through there. You can chat live with an IRA specialist. You can upload documents encrypted through there. And you can even generate custom statements based on your different investments that you might be holding. So that's pretty much all I have for the IRA knowledge and lingo for tonight. I hope that didn't bore you guys too much. I love IRAs. I never imagined that I would be educating people as much about retirement accounts as I am, but it's really great information, and it's really great because you can tailor it to your own situation and apply it in different ways. And, we're in real estate because we don't want to be working until we're 80 years old, right? It's all about kind of planting the seeds now, building your different buckets of money, and not just shoveling a bunch of money into a retirement account and hoping that you have enough saved one day. That's how people have really been taught to save for retirement, and it really doesn't work. It's more about what types of accounts get these tax advantages that I can take advantage of. How can I put just a little bit of money into each one, and how can I make these grow from, my own skill sets that I have? And I can pretty much guarantee you, if you invest your money into something that you are knowledgeable about and passionate about, you're going to build a lot more wealth over the course of your lifetime than maybe just letting a financial planner hopefully plan it out right for you. You really want to take control of your money and, know where your funds are invested. But on that note, I want to kind of talk about some of the different educational resources that we offer. I am at my home office right now. I have a full filming setup here. I have a backdrop. I have 3 lamps. I have fancy microphone. We do a lot of education. We do about 3 to 4 live webinars every single week. Some of them are during the day, some of them are during the evenings, and then we do some big webinars every Saturday as well. You can find all of these events at our website. I think I might have it copied and pasted. I can paste it in the chat here. Maybe I'll have to do it later. Oh, there it is. Let's see. Oh, no, don't have it pasted, but that's okay. Questtrust.com, go to our events, go to our webinars. You can find all of our upcoming events right there. We have a really big event coming up November 13th and 14th. Almost all of our education is almost always free, except for just 2 to 3 events that we do a year that are just a little bit more of a larger scale production. The next one that we have coming up is QuestCon Live 2.0. It's a full 2-day online event. We did the first one in July and it went really well. So we came back in on Monday after the last event, and Nathan, our president, was like, "That was awesome. When are we doing the next one?" So we have it on the calendar. It's November 13th and 14th. It's a full 2-day online event. Tickets are in pre-sales right now. They are $39. I'll put our website in there. You'll kind of have to just find it under the events. But, that'll be a really great event. But we do also have a lot of free events as well. One of the ones that I am most excited about right now is our new online virtual happy hours that we are hosting. Quest before COVID attended and hosted about 600 events a year. So we get a lot of our business from people coming in and learning about retirement accounts. But not only that, but the networking aspect, so you can meet other investors and start those conversations so you can also find deals. We all really miss that aspect. And the webinars are great, but you don't get the networking out of the webinars, quite as much. So Quest and myself are now hosting a new virtual happy hour the 1st and 3rd Wednesday of every month. It's totally free to attend. You do have to RSVP for it. But it's basically, I kind of run it. Everyone gets a chance to go through and, introduce themselves, say what you do, maybe what you might be looking for about a minute or two, and then, have a glass of wine and get to hopefully start those conversations that, might not be starting because we're not all going to RIAs and hanging out in a big room together and probably won't be doing that for a while, at least in the Quest offices. But those are brand new. We started them last month. They've been really successful so far. So I'll put our website here in the chat, but if you guys have questions, definitely let me know, unmute yourselves. This is all of our contact information here. I did not put my own personal email on here. I do a lot of presentations. Sometimes I am not the quickest person to get a hold of, but if you email us at iraspecialist@questtrust.com, that goes to our entire team, and the first available IRA specialist will be able to help you out. We all have the same training. I just do a little bit more public speaking than some of the others. Have a good question here. Well, I haven't read the question yet, but do have a question. Can a self-directed IRA own interest units of an LLC that in turn owns a rental property? So yes, it can. Basically, if you're, in this case, it would be your IRA is invested into the LLC, and then whatever the LLC does from there doesn't really matter to us. Now, the only restriction here is you or anyone who is considered a disqualified person to your IRA. So it's basically you, your spouse, parents, kids, their spouses cannot be the managing members of this LLC. So kind of going back to the golden rule of IRAs, where you or anyone who is a disqualified person to your IRA cannot personally benefit from your IRA investments. Some of the kind of black and white rules that the IRS has said that you cannot do with an IRA is use your IRA to invest into an entity that you own, control, manage, or are highly compensated by. So, it could definitely invest into an LLC or own shares in an LLC. Just you or anyone who is a disqualified person to your IRA cannot be the managing member of the LLC. Hopefully that answered that question. Does anyone else have any questions? Anything like that? Put our website in here really quick. Hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully it didn't bore you all to death. Again, I love self-directed IRAs. It's a really cool wealth building opportunity, and it's something that everyone can benefit from in some sort of way. And we have a lot of educational opportunities, so you can actually feel confident in, what you're doing with an IRA, or even borrowing money from other people's IRAs. We have a lot of resources for you. I definitely encourage you to check out our website, check out our Facebook page, and send us an email or give us a call.
Hey, Lee, I saw a few of the videos that showed how to turn, I think it was like how to turn $10,000 or how to grow $10,000 or something like that for a small IRA. So
Yes.
just kind of give maybe a quick example of something that that you can do, because I know a lot of people have, well, me personally, I've worked at a few different jobs, and I'd have 3,000 or 4,000, 5,000, and then I would take it when I left. I would take the money, so I'd spend it. So maybe there's other people who have small IRAs that maybe that they left somewhere that they want to roll over. So what can they do? What are easy things that they can do to grow that maybe $5,000 or $10,000?
Yeah, definitely. So we do have several classes over how to invest with 10K or less. We even have a really cool event that we did in our Dallas office a couple of years, probably like 2 years ago now. It's called March Madness, and we had 7 different real estate investors come out, and they all presented different case studies that they did with 10K or less, kind of battled it out March Madness style to see who had the best one. If you want that video, just send me an email at the IRA specialist email and I'll send it to you. So you kind of have to dig for it. But, we do see a lot of people grow small IRAs from a few different strategies. Joint ventures could be a good way to do that. Wholesaling in IRAs is a little controversial. There are differing opinions on it. If you maybe start out with a small IRA and maybe wholesale a deal or two, you probably don't have too much to be worried about, but it would probably raise some red flags if you maybe take $100 in an IRA and in a year you do a bunch of wholesales and you grow it to like $100,000. That could be seen as if you're providing a service to the IRA versus truly investing the money. So you might want to be just a little bit wary of that. But Nathan, our president, he believes, if you just do a wholesale or two just to kind of boost that initial balance, probably don't have too much to worry about there. But we do also see a lot of people invest into like partial notes, maybe wraps, purchasing properties subject to. There's a lot of different ways that you can grow a small IRA. And what I always tell people is, it really just might have to involve you just being a little creative for the first couple of deals. If you've got a smaller amount to work with, it doesn't mean that you don't have enough to invest into real estate with your IRA, because it's definitely not the case. But it just might involve you really needing to go out there, maybe leverage some of the people in your network, leverage some of the resources around you, and some of the different investment strategies that can be utilized for a smaller IRA account. But also, I would recommend, if you have a small IRA, or if you maybe have a small 401k from your employer, like you said, maybe you didn't work there that long, maybe you only have like $5,000 or $10,000. My recommendation, I can't tell you what to do, but I would recommend, if you've got a small amount like that, go ahead and convert it to a Roth IRA, because you're going to take a much smaller tax hit converting $5,000 or $10,000 versus taking that $5,000 or $10,000 and growing it in an account that is going to be taxed when you take distributions. If you grow that account to like $1 million, you've now created a really big tax liability for yourself. So if you're in that boat where you maybe have a small 401k, maybe a small rollover IRA, go ahead and look into just converting that to a Roth IRA. Or you could even convert pieces at a time each year if you wanted to, but you're going to really capture a lot of tax-free growth by doing that. My other recommendation would be, if you have a small account, is to, leverage your other family members as well. Like I said, I was able to partner my small IRA with my mom's IRA that, she's been investing a lot longer than I have. She has some more money than I do. So, she was able to own like 90% of those investments in her IRA, but partnered mine in at a small percentage. So even though my IRA only owned like 10% of that deal, it got 10% of all the profits from that deal. So it was able to grow just a little bit and like rinse and repeat that a few times. Now I had $27,000 2.5 years later versus my 11,000. Now that I have 27,000, it's much more easier to partner that, get it out there. But, also set up a consultation with us. That way we can really walk you through the different types of accounts and their contribution limits, and which accounts you might qualify for between you and your immediate family to start making those contributions to even just grow that initial balance enough to maybe do something with it.
Now, something where you partnered with, you said with your mom?
Mm-hmm, I did, yes.
Was that like a fix and flip?
It was, yeah. So it was actually, I'll be honest, like my parents have been clients of Quest for several years now. And, I had a small IRA. I knew how much they had in their IRAs. And my dad kept buying deals in his IRA. And I finally, as a joke, I went over to our real estate department. They're like, hey, we're funding a deal for your dad. And I was like, is my IRA partnered in on it? And they're like, no. And I was like, send it back. And so jokingly, and then I called my parents. I was like, hey, the next deal that you guys do with your IRA, I want to partner mine in on it because I want to start growing it. So yeah, the first fix and flip, it was like out in like Montgomery, like Splendora outside of Houston. It's like $100,000 property. The rehab was like $35,000. And my IRA owned 8% of that deal. So it paid 8% of the purchase price, 8% of the holding cost and repairs. But then when the profits came back in, I also got 8% of the profits. It sold in like 4 months for close to like 200,000. So my IRA got back a nice little profit on that one. So the next deal, I was able to own my 10%. So then I got 10% of the profits. But, we see this a lot with promissory notes as well. If all of the accounts in the deal are held at Quest, it's really easy for us to kind of, divvy up the payments. If a payment needs to get sent out, we'll pull it from each of the different accounts based on those percentages of ownership. Same thing when the money comes in. But, we do see a lot of people that, might partner their IRAs together just to loan out funds to other investors. And even when you're loaning your money, you could do a small loan, $10,000. You could do a big loan. You could even get back like an equity share of, when that property sells. You could structure that into the promissory note. And you could even negotiate to have your borrower pay your Quest fees for the transaction. So you could even do it without your IRA incurring any fees. So, I always recommend, if someone has a small account, pay the fees from outside of the IRA. But, if the borrower is going to pay those fees, to them, that's just a small cost of doing business, like $200 maybe. And then for you, you now just did that deal without costing you anything. So
Yeah, I've borrowed from a few people at Quest, and of course I always pay, a point,
Mhm.
2 points plus all the Quest fees, and they just let me know right before closing what it's going to be. And yeah,
Yep.
200 and something dollars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's like 125 to fund the investment, then the yearly administrative fees. They start out at $25 a quarter and then go up from there. But the fees are in line, and especially if you're doing investments, making money, what you're really trying to capture is that long-term growth, to really truly save for retirement. The Quest fees, and at the end of the day, they become pretty nominal. Especially if someone does have a decent balance in an IRA, a lot of financial advisors, once you have a decent balance, they up their fees to like 1 to 2% of your total portfolio value. I'll never forget, I had a guy come into our Dallas office one day, and he's got a pretty big IRA. It's, several $100,000. And he came in and he was like, my financial advisor made more money off of my IRA last year than I made. And he was upset. He
Wow.
hasn't transferred all of his funds yet, but he's transferred quite a bit. But it's true, once they charge those higher fees, your account's not growing and they're making a lot of money off of it. And, you're not seeing the returns that you should in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there was another question there.
Let's see.
You see that?
Every time the chat pops up, it pops up behind everyone's faces. Let's see.
So do the funds in the SD IRA account earn interest during the idle periods in between investment projects?
So they do not. So at Quest, and we are very transparent about this, at Quest, we only hold privately held assets. We don't really have a platform to hold any sort of like interest bearing investments. So the good news is your money won't be losing anything, but it won't be gaining anything. So that is something that's very important. And that's why I kind of mentioned that a lot of our clients might just transfer over what they intend on self-directing. And you can transfer cash between your IRAs at any time. IRA to IRA transfers are not even reported to the IRS. Again, you just really want to be aware of the time frame. So, if you say have an investment in your IRA at Quest that is returning like monthly payments or quarterly payments, at any time you could transfer that cash back over to your other IRA account. So at least it can be earning some sort of like nominal interest rate. But if you want to send those funds back over to Quest to do another investment, you just want to make sure that you give yourself enough time for that to happen. And again, it really just depends on your custodian. Some of them are super efficient. Some of them are just terrible and very, very slow, and very picky. So yeah, so it just sits as a cash balance, but you can transfer it back and forth at any time.
Anybody else have any questions for Haley?
Yeah, I guess
hope this is
I'll ask,
helpful.
follow up to that one. So it sounds like you basically need to be working this money pretty hard. I mean, you can't just put in the account and find an investment and then sit back. You've got to continuously be out searching for new investments. So how I guess this is a hard question, but how much of my time does that take away to do that?
So I mean, it really just, if you're already going out there and looking for deals, basically when you come across a deal, just ask yourself, do I want to do this deal with my own personal funds, or do I want to do this deal in my IRA? If you're really looking to capture that income right now, you probably want to do that deal outside of your IRA, because that money, outside of your retirement account pays you today. Whereas investments in your IRA, that profit all goes back into the IRA and, basically grows tax sheltered for your retirement. So, I wouldn't so much look at it as, how much is this taking away from what I'm already doing, but more so, this is like an opportunity for these things that I'm already doing to maybe just do a couple of my investments, maybe in an IRA instead of my own personal funds, because I'm going to have all of this grow without being taxed and help it save for my retirement. I always like to tell people there's some investments that make really great IRA investments, like maybe like a promissory note, just being passive with it. But there's some investments that might not make the best IRA investments. I always like to use like beach houses or like Airbnbs as an example, because if you own a property in your IRA, you cannot live there, you cannot go stay there according to the rules. So like Airbnbs, things like you might want to personally enjoy, do that from outside of the IRA. But, you know, as you're out there marketing, looking for investments, you know, just kind of say, hey, if this one's going to pay off really nicely, maybe if I don't need this income right now, do that deal in your IRA instead of in your own personal funds. But yeah, I mean, it's probably the same networking relations that you're already going out there and doing. It's just a different place that you're holding the investment, would be my opinion.
Yeah. And Mike, if you have 50, 60, 70,000, I'm sure you can lend it out to somebody. I'm sure Tanya can use it. I could use it. Todd could use it. I'm sure somebody can use it. Or one thing that I've seen a lot of people do is do a loan, like maybe like let's say you're doing 8% loan and maybe 10% of the profits.
So it goes back to the question. Mine was really a follow-up on the in-between stuff. You know, if I've got to continuously hustle to get my money reinvested again in the next deal, versus park it in some kind of managed portfolio that somebody else takes care of and I don't have to think about. Obviously, there's pros and cons to both, but the point that I'm making is that the con to this is that you have to constantly work your money to find where it's going to go next, right? Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I would definitely say that's a fair statement. So, you know, self-directed IRAs are 100% self-directed. It's up to you to find investments for your IRA. You know, the benefit though is that, you know, if you have an investment that you think is going to pay off really nicely, it could, you know, help grow your IRA much faster through investments that you actually have more control over. Because, you know, someone else is managing your funds. It might be going well, but, you know, global pandemic might happen. You might lose 30% of your value in 2 days, which we did see happen with a lot of people. You know, of course it is recovering now, but, you know, a lot of people just do not like that instability of the stock market. But it ultimately really comes down to your personal preference. But I will also let you know, there are a lot of big, like, you know, like funds, like things like that out there where it's really easy to kind of keep your money parked there and keep it passive, keep it working, where you don't necessarily have to work so much. And it could be maybe more of like a longer term investment. It's just kind of up to you to go out there and find where you would like to invest your funds.
Yeah, I agree with what you said though earlier, is that I think in a lot of cases, those turn out to be lower yields versus if you're working it on something like this. So pros and cons to both. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of make sure I understood that correctly.
Yes.
And I was actually going to say that I had, when I left my job, I had like $35,000 after 2 or 3 years. And I finally decided to transfer it over because I ended up with 30,000. So I actually lost money out of it after another 2 years. And I've had it in my self-directed IRA for 1 year and I've made $4,000 already. So it's not a really, I mean, you do have to do a lot of work to find the people, but once you do make a lot more money at the end of the day.
Yeah. Thanks.
Awesome. Yeah, and
also, just add on, like Rick said, there's plenty of us that definitely need the money. So if you need any help finding anybody that needs it, we're here.
yeah.
Got it.
You got some money, Mike? I'll take it.
Oh man, Rick, I have a feeling as soon as we get off this call, my phone's gonna be blowing up.
Hey, and when you need the IRA stuff to happen, just call me. Or any IRA specialist. We can help you out.
I've already got your contact information.
Perfect. Now I'll go ahead and put my personal email here in the chat as well. We do like a weekly newsletter. If y'all want to know what sort of upcoming events we have, just check out our website or email me. But I definitely encourage you guys to check out the happy hours. They're kind of my little baby right now. It's my child. I've started it. I've had it going on for about a month now. So yeah, those are going really well. And, you know, everyone is always welcome to join those.
Yeah. And Mike, also when you get to meet more people, where you can't do so much in person, but like this this group, the groups that they're having, you talk to people, you meet people, you kind of know pretty quick. Hey, I like this guy. I don't like this guy. He sounds shady. This one sounds legit. Let me talk to him more. Then you meet him in person and get to know him a little bit. And, you know, you can ask Nick, you can ask me, you ask Tanya, ask other people. Hey, do you know this guy? He sounds okay,
Yeah.
but you know, I don't know. I met him, but do you know him?
Yeah.
And you just ask people, and you know, you'll know. You'll get a good feeling or a bad feeling about him, and just ask around about him. And uh, there's a lot of people that can use the money, that want to partner. If you have money, you can put it to work. It's definitely not a full-time job to get it done. I know Betty. We were talking, and just all of a sudden she says, "Well, I have some money, by the way, if you need to use it." And I said, "Well, you know what? I just bought a property, but if we could refinance it with your money, so I can get my money and my partner's money back out of the deal, because we just happened to see another property that we want to buy also." And she goes, "Sure, whichever one. If you want to refinance, if you want to do the other one, yeah." And so, I mean, that started our relationship on lending. And I've borrowed from her, gosh, 3-4 times already. And then her boyfriend, Mike, is it Mark, he just gave me a second on a property that I went way over budget on, and I was pulling money out of pocket, and I just said, you know what, let me get some of my money back. So he gave me a second for 15,000 on a property. And yeah, we're getting ready to close at the end of the week. So, and on that one, it was kind of weird. We did, it was 15,000. He did 12% since it was a second. And I told him, look, you know, it's $150 a month. I said, why don't we do 3 months from day one up to 3 months? It's 3 months of interest. I said, if he goes 3 months in a day, then it's 6 months interest. And he says, okay, so blocks of 3 months interest. And I said, yeah. I said, I'm pretty sure it's going to be within a month, maybe 2 at the most, but you'll get 3 months of interest. And so, you know, he got $450, not a whole bunch of money, but you know, it's a little bit better for him. It was quick and easy for me, and he had extra money out. So yeah, nice and easy.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure we're going to have some more discussions about this.
Definitely.
Sounds like you guys have some experience that I can lean on.
Yeah, I've done a few deals with Quest. I can tell you, oh my gosh, a friend of mine had equity trust company out of Ohio. Oh my God, it took forever. And then, so we finally got the deal done. It happened. Okay, great. She got paid back. Fine. So the next property we were going to do, I was going to buy a note, and I was asking her to basically fund the purchase of a note. And they were like, I don't know what you're talking about. This is, you're borrowing money to lend money. And they were just completely freaked out. And yeah, other places don't know as much about transactions as the people at Quest. I can tell you that I've gotten quick answers, or I tell the person who has the account there, ask them this and this and this, and it's quick. So I definitely know what they're talking about over there.
So this is our new hire training book. It is an inch long. Every new hire goes through this in their first 3 months at Quest. And then the IRA specialist training, we don't even have a book just because it's much more complex. But yeah, we're nerds and we love IRAs, and so always here to help.
So any other questions, thoughts, ideas? Anybody?
Just Mike, to your point on longevity of deals, a lot of the examples were kind of flipping loans, short-term loans. I do quite a bit of investing out of our IRAs, and a lot of the things that we're involved in are multifamily syndication deals where you're typically holding like minimum 3 years. And some of the funds, like the mobile home park funds that we're in, are really targeted at 5 to 10 years. So those, you can get into deals where you're getting cash flow along the deal, and then you've got upside at the back end of the deal. So you are getting a really competitive overall return, but you're also keeping your money working, for a number of years after one initial investment and one set of paperwork and one setup process. Then that investment can carry on for years without having to go back and have downtime and have your money sitting idle in between deals. So there's a lot of, there's obviously a lot of different things you can do with it, but I wouldn't say that's a big concern to get around. If you want to put your money to work for a longer period of time, there are definitely opportunities to do that.
Good to know. Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks again, Haley, for coming out and talking to everybody and giving all kinds of information. We definitely enjoyed it. I definitely enjoyed it. I think everybody else did too.
Thank you.
So yeah, if you want to join us, of course, come on over. It's on Meetup Real Estate Group of San Antonio, or Real Estate Group of SA, and I will definitely be at the virtual happy hour too. Hopefully, some of you guys too can be out there and take a look and listen to everybody and see what everybody has to say.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks so much for having me tonight. I hope y'all enjoyed it. Hope everyone learned a little bit of something. And, I'm always here to help answer questions. I put my email there in the chat. So, let me know you were on this webinar. Sometimes I do just forward things over to our other IRA specialists who handle some of the conversations a little bit more. But let me know that you were here, and I'll definitely make time to answer any questions that you guys have.
All right. Well, thanks, guys. And we'll see you next month, or we'll see you at the brew meeting, the Burning State Networking. That's the one that Todd and Elizabeth have.
So
More
the speaker is this one?
Multifamily.
All right.
Who's your speaker?
It's to be announced.
Okay.
Okay. Got to see if Nick's free.
All right. Great. Well, we'll see you guys next month then.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Good seeing you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.